Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the 20th episode of Jesse Green Live. On July 26th and 27th, I did my first theatrical production, actually performed on stage for Potomac Playmakers in a one-act play called Indigent. It was an experience, a lot of prep time. Not sure if I'll do it again, but it was fun. We shot this podcast shortly after that at the theater for Potomac Playmakers with Jim Zuna. When I went to edit it, I found out that my mic was set a little high, so you'll hear some crackling with my sound, with my voice. Jim's mic was fine. Mine crackled a little bit. So we are aware of it. We have it corrected for the next time. We're in a learning process here. We might have 20 podcasts under our belt, but we're still learning as we go, especially remote. Remote sometimes offers, unique setups that we have to do. But here is episode 20 with Jim Zuna from Potomac Playmakers. Hope you enjoy.
Call me Joe. That's not my real name, but most people in America could not pronounce my name, so I just say, call me Joe. Best word to describe me is average. I'm just an average guy. In fact, some people call me Average Arthur. Hey, everybody, welcome to Jesse Green Live. Those two people that you saw, they were my characters in a play at the Potomac Playmakers called Indigent. We did that on the 26th and 27th.
26th and 27th of July, just last weekend.
Just last weekend. Well, it'll be more than last weekend till we see this, but
magic of film.
It's been within the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And this was my first venture into theater, and I might do it again. Not sure. It's pretty stressful learning the lines and all that. This is my guest, Jim Zuna, and what's your position here?
Well, first off, thanks for having me. I'm on the board of directors for the Potomac Playmakers. As far as the 2024 One Act Festival that we just finished, I curated the festival, directed one of the three plays from birth.
And that was a great. All three of them were great plays.
They were.
They were completely different, but
yeah. So that was this year's One Act Play Festival. Going back into the mid 2010s, the Potomac Playmakers had been running a One Act Festival. Originally, it started with essentially a partnership with Frostburg State University, where we would stage plays that had placed in the top three of their One Act playwriting competition. In the second year of us doing that, we turned out we weren't able to do one of the plays. We had difficulty casting individuals of color, and that play, that would have been critical. So we weren't able to do that play. Wound up having one of our actors in one of the other plays. It turned out he had written one that turned out to be really good. And so we wound up staging that instead. And from there, that kicked off a playwriting competition of our own. So now in the fall, we put out the call for playwrights from the four-state area, Maryland, Virginia, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, and the District of Columbia. You have to have at least one playwright from the four-state region. Submit a play, essentially one-act play, roughly a half hour in length. They're due in January. And then after that, we have a committee that reviews the plays. We come to our top three or four. The top three are what we ultimately look to stage. Then you reach out to the playwrights, get their agreement, and then we get underway.
Okay. Yeah, so this was, it was three different plays. What was the name of the first one? Do you know?
The first one was called Making Ernie Go to Therapy, and that was written kind of as a British farce.
Yeah.
The basic idea, you had two guys that just pulled off a robbery. They're running from the police. They had ditched their stash outside in the trash, and they run into this building and are confronted by this lady who goes on as if they're scheduled for couples counseling. And so they go through the whole play basically undergoing couples counseling, these two thieves and buddies, and of course there's a twist at the end, but very
Yeah.
British, written very much in that style, a lot of British language, really funny play. The playwright's name was Mike Byam, who did that.
Okay.
And then that was directed by Mr. Rory Dunn.
Okay. And then that was first out, and then it was our play, Indigent, which was by
F.J. Hartland.
F.J. Hartland. And all three playwrights were here over the 2 nights.
Right.
All three of them showed up. The other amazing thing about these plays, this was the first time they've ever been performed.
Right. That's one of the requirements that we have. It has to be a play that's never been produced elsewhere. We actually lost out on a play during the course of the process. There was one we were looking at, and they had to pull from contention because they actually had signed on with another play festival, which they actually wound up winning. So it's really competitive. But yeah, FJ's Indigent was really powerful.
Oh, it was. There was not a lot of humor in it.
No.
It was a pretty dark. Basically, what it did is follow 6 lives of how they went from basically a normal life to being indigent when they died, and then 3 good people that helped with indigent funerals and burials, so they had some dignity at the end of their life. And there was not, of course, all 6 people died. Not a lot of funny parts to it, and a real deep story.
Yeah, really powerful. You had 3 actors playing 6 different characters, telling the stories of their lives and ultimately their deaths, dying alone, largely unknown for the most part.
Yeah.
But then you also had the same 3 actors playing the characters of the volunteers.
So each one of us had to play 3 characters.
Yeah. So
it was probably not the best play for me to pick for my first time out, but I'll be honest. It was stressful. It was because I've done a lot of movies, and I'm a real stickler on knowing my lines. But in movies, if you mess up, you just do another take. With this, there wasn't no extra takes to it. My characters had 9 monologues in it, and we're looking at the stage right now. When you're up there in that stage and you're in the middle of a monologue, there's no parachute, there's no help anywhere.
No.
You're
the great thing about this script is also the challenge of the script. I mean, there's some real meat in that script for actors to really dive in and get into these characters and really tell these stories. But you're right, the fashion it was written with these monologues. When you're doing a monologue, you're doing it by yourself. That's what monologue means. But that also means that your other performers aren't in a position to save you.
No.
So if you do forget your lines, if you jump to a section of the script or what have you,
that may have happened. That may have happened.
Well, the beauty of it, the only people that would know are the people in the show, your director, and maybe the playwright. Anybody else, unless it's like some real pregnant pause, or if somebody's muttering under their breath, it's like, oh crap, what's my line?
Yeah, what's my line?
Unless something like that happens, nobody knows.
Nobody knows,
especially in a play that nobody's seen before.
Right, right.
So there is that.
Well, we asked the playwright after everything was over, and he said, I don't know. I wrote this 2.5 years ago. I don't know if you missed something or not. And I'm like, great. You could have told me this 3 months ago, and I might not have been under so much pressure, But I know I had one monologue that was pretty difficult for him because his writing was like here and here and here and here, and I was finishing up one part of the monologue, and I couldn't remember the next section. but within seconds, I could remember the next section. So I just jumped to the next section instead of walking around on stage going, oh God damn, what? Because I had a meltdown on what was it, Tuesday night? And this was Friday night when we first performed it. So 3 days.
So normally we have a rule that what happens during Tech Week, we don't talk about what happens at Tech
Oh,
Week.
okay.
But that being said, if hypothetically any of our actors or performers were struggling with their lines on Tuesday, by the time we got to Friday, it's one of my favorite parts about community theater or theater in general. In most productions I've been involved in, there's a point in the show where it just feels like it's all going to fall apart. It's not going to come together. Something's wrong. And it's like this magic dust that just sprinkles on the production at some point within those 2 weeks, and it clicks. And so, if hypothetically,
Yeah, someone would really screw up and,
a performer
kind
were to
of freeze on stage.
if a performer were to have struggled on Tuesday, by the time we got to Friday, that's when the magic happened, and that's the important thing. And the great thing about the two performances we had great audiences, well attended, but good energy, especially that Friday show.
Yeah.
Just really high energy. The parts that were funny in the shows got big laughs. The dramatic parts, parts that really, and especially in Indigent, because Indigent really touches on some very difficult territory as far as things that can happen to people.
And I was told there were some near tears or tears during Indigent.
There were some tears. We had, after we finished, we had a talkback Q&A session with the cast and crew, and then whichever playwright was there for that particular performance. And I think it was the Friday show we had a veteran stand up, because some of the areas that we got into were PTSD as a result of war and the effects that had. We had a veteran stand up and comment on it and comment on how affected he was by what he had just seen on stage. And that was tremendous. In all of the plays, even the comedies, there's some human element to it.
Yeah.
That's one of the things we look for, is just that human element. Like, how does that potentially connect to people? And in Indigent, there was so much of it.
Oh, it was. Well, we don't want to miss the last play. That was called
From Birth. That was written by Don Narkovic. The basic premise: you have two twins that are in the womb, and they encounter each other after about the first 7 months of the pregnancy, and so they get to know each other as time goes on. They get to learn their likes and dislikes. They come to realize that they're twins.
Even Jim had a small part in it.
I did. See, I'm not sure how. We'll just put it this way. There's a point when they're in the womb and they come under a torpedo attack.
A big torpedo.
Big
round torpedo.
That was in the script. But off stage, there may or may not have been two members of the production with a microphone throwing in the necessary moans and groans that were needed to really set the mood and set the scene. But yeah, really funny bit.
And it was a funny scene.
Yeah, it was a funny scene, and some of it was added onto, because you have the written script, and a lot of the one acts are actually, when you deal with playwrights that have been involved in theater on some point. So when you see a traditional script, very detailed in blocking and movement and where everything's supposed to go. And you find when you do community theater or other theater, if you're going to really be beholden to what's written in the script, it can be really confining. So a lot of the time when you have playwrights that have been involved in theater, they leave those details out because they leave it open for interpretation or open to add some tweaks and things. So there were some body movements that we were able to add in. We basically added in about 2 or 3 jokes on top
Okay.
of what was actually in the script. And even leading up to the night of the show, the brother of the twins, played by Tannen Smith, he threw in a little bit extra that he hadn't even thrown in up to the last rehearsal. And when he did it, I'm off stage doing everything I can not to laugh out loud because you don't want to interfere with the show.
Yeah.
But that's the great thing. It's like you're constantly working, you're constantly tweaking things, you're constantly adding things. And in this case, it wound up enhancing what was on the written page.
Yeah, I know in Indigent, there was no instructions on how to staging or anything on that.
No, very, very minimal. I think there originally had been some talk of just almost having like a wardrobe rack with stuff hung up, and then as the actors would go, they would just throw on
Throw it
or
on
off
the wall.
whatever.
Yeah.
And what your director Angel Mullen did, she basically had like a wardrobe screen.
Yeah.
And then everything you had behind it, you had a table in front. You had a lot of the props were just laid out, or it was in a box. And as you needed the props, you would reach in the box and pull out whatever you needed. Wound up being a brilliant way to do that, especially when you're having multiple actors performing multiple characters and they're switching on and off. You really need that quick pace. And so it wound up being a brilliant way to do it. And I know FJ, as part of our talkback session with him, he had really commented on what he saw with the setting or staging of it, and was really impressed with what we did with it.
It was an experience, and it was fun. I just put a lot of stress on myself too, especially after theoretically somebody could have a meltdown on Tuesday night. And have to be ready by Friday. If that would have ever happened, I'm sure it's never happened.
Oh no,
never happened.
Never.
Somebody could pull that back, but
Sure.
yeah, it was fun.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead and say it.
History of Potomac.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
I was going to get to that.
yeah. Just set me up with the question. I'll go ahead and give it to
We
you.
won't cut that out.
Oh, okay.
That was our director Russell,
Hi,
or
Russell.
behind the camera guy. Yeah, who may have or may not have been the veteran on Friday night.
Well, I wasn't going to name him.
I know I wasn't, but now that he's projected himself into this podcast, which he always finds a way to do. I don't know. I don't understand.
See, there's always the thing about breaking the fourth wall.
Yeah.
It's never the fourth wall crashing into you.
Right.
You ever notice?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But that's okay.
But since you brought me up, I was at the Friday night show, and you don't really have to see me because 90% of y'all know who I am anyway. But I was truly moved by the first one. Laughed my butt off. It was great. Second and third one. The third one was laugh. A little heart tugging as well. But the center one, the indigent section, really moved me. So, thank you, guys.
Okay.
Well, thank you.
If y'all don't know what Russell looks like, here's what he looks like. Put a tie in it.
You might need to grow it out and get another couple knots on
tie
it.
in it. Yeah.
Yeah, you only wish you could have a beard like mine.
Yeah.
There you go. So anyway, Russell asked about.
Well, I
history.
could, but I can afford razors.
Mm. Hey, you know what? Cost cutting measures.
Hey, yeah.
You might want to cut this part, you dick.
No, that's okay. Hey, it's live. We're live, folks.
That's right.
We're not actually at 5:36 in the morning, which you've all figured out since November. But
And the sun coming out.
but we are live. Yeah, we are live. Okay.
Back to the Potomac Claim.
Yeah.
Yes.
How long have they been in existence? How long? The whole story.
So, the whole story. Wow.
Well, wait a minute. How long is the whole story going to take?
Well, the whole story is about 98 years at this point.
Oh, we don't have time for the whole story.
All right, so the short version of Potomac Playmakers have been around since 1926. We
Wow.
are one of the 4 or 5 longest active community theater troupes in the entire country. We're
Wow.
the second longest active in Maryland. There's one group, I believe they're called the Vagabond Players, out of Fells Point in Baltimore. They've got about somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 years on us. But yeah, we're actually going to be getting ready to schedule our 100th anniversary celebration. We're actually talking about it now, to start making plans for 2026.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. So let's see. In the history of the organization, most of the history or most of the theatrical performances had been at the Women's Club in downtown Hagerstown. There was a period when I first got involved with the organization 14 years ago, we were at the Academy Theater. Um, that didn't end well, and for a lot of reasons. But we wound up finding our way back after a while to the Women's Club, and then in 2017, Lee and Pat Stein, their mom, or Lee's mom, had been a huge supporter of the organization since way back. And then when she passed away, she had a family trust. And so the Stein family would regularly make annual donations to the organization. Well, they got to the point where they were going to wind down the trust. They reached out to us and said, "Hey, we've got X dollars set aside for the Potomac Playmakers if you're able to find a building." And basically, that money facilitated ultimately the purchase of where we're at right now, which is the Potomac Playmakers Performing Arts Center.
And what's the address on that?
17303 West Washington Street, in Hagerstown. It's the old Cedar Lawn Missionary Church for those whose memories go back far enough. But we're just past the Sky Zone, just past the emission station on West Washington Street. So yeah, we're just west of town.
And you got the best seats.
Now these,
There's a story there too.
there's a story. There's always a story.
Always a story.
There are so many stories. But so anyway, we bought the building in 2017, and then theater people not knowing much about construction and renovation work, we had in our heads we were going to be done within 9 months. And then we discovered permits. And then we discovered that we needed more funding and financing and all that fun stuff. And then we were trucking along, and then COVID hit. Probably wound up being a little bit of a blessing in disguise, because once we were able to be in a room together at all, basically we just had all the time in the world to go ahead and continue working on the building. And then we got our occupancy permit July of 2020, kicked off that September with Best Little Whorehouse in Texas, and a few bumps and bruises with the pandemic aside, we've pretty well continually kept going since. But as far as the seats, our friends at Warehouse Cinema in Leitersburg, when they bought the Leitersburg Theater and went to renovate, they wound up swapping out the theater seats that they had. I think there was an article in the paper. Our president at the time, Barry Harbaugh, reached out to them to see if seats would be available. They wound up just donating
Wow.
the seats. And so basically we just had to get a storage unit to be able to hold all the pieces. They wound up being delivered, and then I guess a year and a half ago, when we went dark after the conclusion of that season, the big project was getting the church pews that we had in here.
Oh, they're church pews.
Oh yeah, yeah. This building was a full-on church, and when the church folded, basically they turned off the lights, locked the doors behind them, and when we bought the building, everything in the building conveyed, with the exception of a baby grand piano, that had to go back to the family that had donated it to the church.
Okay.
But everything else came with the building. So we had an existing stage, which we've actually doubled the depth on when we did our renovation. So the back end's the original stage, and the front's what we added to. But we had all these pews. We put padding on them originally, because that was going to be kind of a phase 2 or phase 3 of getting the building together. And then, like I said, we got the donation from Warehouse Cinema. And yeah, these are about the most comfortable theater seats you can find.
Yeah, they're top end, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it seats, I think we counted about 96 actual seats.
93, I think, is what we're slotted for. And then
you have areas for handicap.
We have handicap accessible. We do have some folding chairs if need be. Um, we still have additional seats from the theater or from the warehouse cinema donation that we could start stacking back. But as far as keeping seating comfortable, we're at 93 right now.
Okay. Okay. When you're up there on stage, it seems like there's 993. You look out there and it's, although, quick story, this has been 5, 6, 7 years ago. I ended up on stage with Kenny Chesney
Okay.
at Nissan and Merriweather.
So 15, 20,000 people.
Yeah, yeah. I tell you, first time I have no idea what happened. First time I walked out on stage, I was so freaking scared.
Mm-hmm.
But second time at Merriweather, I was used to it.
Yeah.
But when you first walk out on stage at Nissan, I walked out and all you could see was people and people and people and people and people and people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just a mass of heads out there.
That reminds me, the first time I performed on the Maryland Theater stage, there's another group in town that does a lot of large-scale musicals, and they do them at the Maryland Theater. So the first one I did was Wizard of Oz, and so that was the first time performing on that stage. And the stage was fine, except the day of, or actually I guess when I arrived that evening, I went with their board president to go check on the box office numbers. And this is before they did their big renovation that they've done since. But they had a hallway, and the hallway had all these framed pictures of everybody who'd ever performed on that stage. And it was Johnny Cash.
Yeah.
It was Willie Nelson.
Yeah.
It was B.B. King. It was like all these legends. And then you realize you're about ready to perform on that stage.
Same stage,
It wasn't even the number of people that were coming to see, although, that was 600, 700, 800 that night. But it was who had been on that stage before. And that was the nerve-wracking thing for me. But then having done it, I mean, there's nothing like a large audience, but there's also nothing like a small, intimate audience. And getting back to the one acts, doing a play that's never, you talked about pressure, and I completely understand that, because it's one thing if somebody screws up Shakespeare. Bill Shakespeare is not going to walk into the theater and say, "Hey, you didn't get my lines right on page 3."
Yeah.
Andrew Lloyd Webber, Sondheim, those guys, the ones that are still with us, they're not going to be coming in from New York City. But you've got a playwright with these original one acts. Some have won awards for other things. Some, I think there was at least one of the playwrights, this was the first play that he had produced, period. But there is that additional pressure to get it right for them.
Yeah.
So I completely understand that feeling.
I know I was more nervous on Saturday night than what I was on Friday night, simply because I knew he was in the audience.
Yeah.
And then we asked him afterwards, and he goes, "I don't remember. I wrote it 2.5 years ago." I'm like, that would have been nice to know before I walked out on stage.
Yeah. But hearing how pleased all three of the playwrights were with how it turned out, and certainly how well they were received by the audience, that winds up being everything when you have these.
Yeah, because I know in movies, you go into it as an actor in the movie with a preconception of what the actress is going to look like, where it's going to be shot, and then for whatever reason, it doesn't turn out to be that way at all.
Yeah.
But in the end, it all works. And it's, I think this one act play weekend was a success.
Oh, absolutely.
It was free admission, donation if you wanted to give, but
not peeling too far behind the scenes. Really well attended. It was pay what you can. So some folks just walked in and caught a free show. Some people were dropping just $20 bills just right as they walked in the door. Some people dropped more. So from all angles, it wound up being a really successful weekend. I know our board was thrilled with how it turned out. Most of them were here working it in some capacity. But yeah, it just wound up turning out really well, and I'm really excited to see this grow. 'Cause, like I said, we had started 2015, 2016, somewhere in there, and then COVID had hit, and that kind of knocked everything off for a while. So last year we sort of did a soft relaunch. We had a teacher in the area that was working on her master's degree in theater, and she was authorized, or she had to do a practical as part of her master's work. And so she had gotten the approval to produce a one act festival. And so that sort of resurrected the idea. We didn't do a playwriting competition. She brought in one script. She was a teacher, so she had a couple of her kids writing one. And then we revived one of the original one acts that we had done several years before. And just the production of it wound up going really well. And so that allowed us to revive the playwriting competition. And now, having seen the results of that, I fully expect that's going to become an annual thing again.
Good, good. I was attracted to this because I'm pretty busy between movies and professional wrestling. I don't have time to practice for 2-3 months and then run 2-3 weekends, and I just don't have that availability. And when I saw this and I saw what the play was about, I thought, yeah, I'll do it. My audition, I walked out of the audition thinking I did the best I could, but there's a big difference between acting in film and acting on stage.
Oh, absolutely.
Big difference. And I got into acting 10 years ago, not knowing anything about acting. I just kind of fell into it. And I've done pretty good for myself. And but one thing I hadn't done was acted on stage, and I wanted to try it. And I think I did okay.
You did?
First time out.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think I
behind the camera we're getting.
Yeah,
all right.
Yeah, but he's actually when you get this from Russell,
that's high praise.
That's because he don't do this. He don't ever do this. That's the best you ever get there.
Oh, okay.
That's the best you ever get. So, but yeah, everybody that I think I had like 9 people here on Friday night sit. I don't think I had anybody here on Saturday, but.
No, we just had
everybody
60 some odd of our other closest friends and family.
Yeah. But people came up to me and and said I did good. So I'll tell you, Jim, that like I tell everybody on any movie set, I don't claim to be the best actor or best at anything I do, but when I do something, you're getting 150% of what I can do. I may not be the best, but you're getting
the best of you.
You're getting the best I can do.
There you go.
And that's all I can do. But it was an experience. I had said going into it that I probably wouldn't ever do it again. But after a conversation on Friday night after the show, over a couple margaritas. Well, for me.
Yeah, I think I came across you after the couple of margaritas.
Yeah.
All I know is we get to talking, and then I look down and realize it's 1:30.
Oh, I know.
And that's when the producer and me kicks in. It's like, we need to get you to
bed.
we
need to get you home.
She's like, you've got an early call tomorrow afternoon, so go home and get some sleep. But
he kind of talked me into maybe trying it again if the stars align and and everything's. And I'm not in Hollywood,
right?
But then again, think of the draw that would come back if I am known in Hollywood, and I come back to my hometown. It'd be like Hugh Jackman coming to Hagerstown to do a one-act play.
He wouldn't be cheap.
Well, I didn't say I'd be cheap. I didn't say you're getting ahead of the game here. No. If I ever make it big. Just to help Potomac Playmakers out, I'll come back and do a show for free.
All right, so we've got that on camera, right?
As long as my agent at the time okays it.
Okay. There's the caveat.
Yeah, there's the caveat.
Okay, there it is.
But for me, I'll come back, to help because it was a fun experience. Everybody here that I ran into was great to work with. Angel was an awesome director. Never lost faith in me, even after maybe allegedly happening on Tuesday night. Never lost faith in me. And my two actors in there.
So you had Chris Leatherman and you had Tiffany Clark. Tiffany was new to us.
Was she?
Yeah, she doesn't live in the area.
No,
So when she came to audition, she came with a friend. And I think the original idea was that they were going to split off some of the female roles, and the friend wound up not being able to do it. So Tiffany just took all the female parts, and they wound up just being a trio, which worked out great.
Yeah.
And then Chris, he's done a number of shows with us. It's been a little while since he had been on the Playmaker stage. Probably the biggest show I can remember he did, it was right before the pandemic. There was a drama called Shadowbox, and he played the son of he played the son of this couple where the husband wound up being diagnosed with terminal cancer. And so like that aspect of the play was the father dealing with his illness and the impact it has on the family. Chris is a fine actor. He's done a lot in the area, so I was glad to see him come back out for this one.
I mean, I could see Indigent being, 6, 9 people.
Oh, easily.
The three caretakers or that were helping with the funeral, and then, well, actually, no, yeah, it'd be 6 other people. Yeah, because we all played 2 characters, so a 9. But that's for a one act play. That's a lot of people.
It's a lot of people, which that can get challenging in terms of casting.
Yeah.
But then if you really start breaking it down, you have a lot of good parts, but they wind up being significantly smaller.
Yeah.
Smaller chunks to handle.
Yeah.
Like, one big challenge with a play like Indigent was just the amount of monologues and lengthy monologues. And probably 85% of the script was monologues. And then there was like the little sequences where you had the volunteers talking about the pauper funerals. That was about the only point where you guys were really interacting with each other.
But anybody out there that has ever worked with me on a movie, I don't do good with monologues. Monologues with me have to be split up because I can't. And that's when I got the call that they offered this role to me. I had never seen the script, and I get the script and I look at it and go, "What the hell did I just get myself into here?" But and you don't know how many times I thought it was an excuse to get out of it. Like I can't. But I don't. That's not me. If I say I'm going to do something, I do something. And I'm glad I stuck with it.
Well, I appreciate that because I didn't want to have to do it myself.
Yeah.
So
well, I almost maybe would have given up if an incident would have happened, earlier in the week, but I knew Jim could step in and take.
I've had a couple of experiences over the years where I had to jump in and take a role relatively short notice. Not one completely cold and not one of 3 different characters where it's all monologue. That would have been a challenge.
Yeah, but it was fun. I appreciate Potomac Playmakers and everybody involved with Indigent, the 2 other plays, everybody that came out to it. Watch for it next year. It's usually about the same time, I assume.
Yeah, it should be. We'll go back to the drawing board, process how everything went. But if we do like we did this past year, sometime around September, October, keep an eye out for the notice for playwrights to start getting their work in. It'll be due sometime early to mid-January, and then we'll get back underway.
Get back. And you don't have to wait till then to come to Potomac Playmakers.
No.
Got Nonsense coming up?
Nonsense 2 is coming up in November. And here's the part where I get to refer to our handy-dandy sheet. Let's see. Halloween weekend, we have our Shadowcast production of Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Okay.
Our drama for the year, it's Arthur Miller's View from the Bridge, and that'll be mid-November, the weekends of the 15th and 22nd. We do Shakespeare in January. That'll be The Tempest. So if you want to go and do something, that's just one weekend.
Yeah.
If you have a playwright, you don't have to worry about coming if you wanted to think about trying to get in on that.
You have to speak Shakespearean.
It's kind of in the script.
No.
But the cool
I think I'm busy that weekend.
But the cool thing about it, Kaylin Cutright, who produces it, she also produces the Rocky Horror Show. She comes up every year with a real contemporary spin on it. So, like when we did Midsummer's Night's Dream last year, it was basically kind of like a hippie '70s vibe to it.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, so it's not Elizabethan folks with ruffles and that kind of thing. I mean, it's the dialogue. It's still Shakespeare.
So you're telling me there's a possibility that on the Tempest that Captain Decapitate could breeze in and breeze out of a scene.
I would suggest if you were to audition, if you came wearing the hook and maybe the pirate cap, that might give her some ideas.
And threaten her?
No.
Okay.
No. I really like Kaylin. She's a sweetheart.
Okay.
Don't threaten her.
I won't threaten her.
But
speaking my fire.
But if you wanted to inspire a thought as far as staging or how you could present a character, I could think of worse ways than to roll in half suited up.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That's
true. Then the back half of the season, we have 2 comedies, The Cemetery Club, and that's the end of March, end of February, beginning of March. And then the last play of the season is going to be the beginning of June, Honky Tonk Hissy Fit by the team of Jones, Hope, and Wooten. So it's a playwriting team of 3 playwrights. They do some of the most hysterical comedies that you'll see. We've done a number of them over the years. Farce of Habit, Farce of Nature, which have been hysterical. Not to get too inside baseball as far as board discussions, but when our play selection committee presented all the options, the instant I heard that they had a play that was in there, it's like, I don't care what it is. I don't care what it's about. If their name's on it, we got to do it. Because every time I've seen something of theirs, it's hysterical. And some of the most fun I've had with the Playmakers at all over the last 14 years have been their shows.
Good. And website is TomyPlaymakers.com?
.org. .org. We are also on Facebook. We're on Instagram. Those are the ones that are officially sanctioned and operated by the Playmakers at this point.
Okay. So be sure to come out and support the plays here. Believe me, it'll. And what's general admission to most plays?
So general admission this season is going to be $20 a ticket. We do have a $15 senior rate. So senior citizen tickets are $15. That'll be a discounted ticket. So
$15.
Yeah. So if you're over 65, I guess if you can play like you're over 65, there you go.
He is over 65.
Oh, yes.
He tells people he's only like 55, 56.
I wouldn't have pegged him up below 70.
Well, I know.
Okay.
I don't like to. I'm older than what he is, but I don't like to. The fact that he acts older than me, I don't like,
So you only play the older for the authority of it, but okay, I get it.
He acts a whole lot older, so he could get in for a senior ticket, I know.
There you go.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. You guys may be acting like you're, whispering to one another, but trust me, those microphones are picking up every word.
Oh, shit, I forgot about microphones. Oh, man. Busted.
Well, it wasn't so much that. I guess the part where he was able to hear it. That's the thing.
I know.
Yeah, I know.
I thought he had to go out and take a peek. You know how old people are.
Well, I mean, he's right in front of you, man.
Where he is.
So if you can't see him, that actually raises more questions about
I can't see him because of the lights.
Oh, it's the lights.
The lights are so bright.
But you were talking just how on Friday and Saturday, all this audience, and how you're staring at all this audience, and how much pressure that puts on you, and you've got the spotlights beaming on you. I know. And now just like the camera for this podcast set up, and all of a sudden it's blinding you to what's happening.
And they're just two little lights put on.
But they're very impressive. Don't get me wrong.
What do they put on? 9%?
Yeah, you get them at
9%. 9%. Yeah, and I'm bitching about that.
Yeah.
You're no fun. You call me out, man. I don't like that shit. You need to go along with the jokes, Jim. So with that, now that he's pissed me off, it doesn't go along with my jokes.
Just like a bowl of soggy Captain Crunch just upsets him.
He had to go there. He had to go there. Join us next week at 5:36 in the morning, and I can guarantee you all, his ass won't be here. See you next Wednesday. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you so much for having me, Jesse. Take care.
I can't believe that shit. After all that, you had to bring that up, didn't you? You really did, didn't you?
I really did.
Man.